Continuing on with the TMCC Library Open Genealogy Lab Outstanding Guest Speaker Series, today we are pleased to present Michelle Wagner. Michelle is a true native to Florida, born in the Indian River County and raised in St. Lucie County. She attended the University of Central Florida, where she obtained her bachelor's degree. She then began a career as a social worker and found a love for working with people and helping them find local resources for a variety of needs. During this time, her love for research and history blossomed into genealogy. She has always loved researching the Civil War, starting when she was just in high school. This should have been a hint that her passion would one day be genealogy research. Michelle has been with the Indian River County Library System for over 7 years and has been the genealogy librarian there for the past 4+ years. Michelle finds that being organized and detail-minded has helped in researching not only her own family, but also those who need help. Michelle is a member of the local chapter of her DAR, the former PR of the Indian River Genealogical Society, former co-chair on the Vero Beach Centennial Pioneer Program, and an ASPCA guardian. She has lectured on various topics pertaining to local history and has been on the radio from time to time promoting different local events. So without further ado, I would like to extend a warm virtual welcome to Michelle.
Thank you, Suzanne, and welcome everybody. We are quite some distance away from each other. In fact, I was checking my email right before I logged on, and I see we have several tropical storms coming towards us in Florida. I'm not sure if anybody's ever been to Florida or not, but the summer months are always our fun and exciting times because you never know when you have to board up your house. But it's always wonderful to talk to people from other places and to hear some of their information as far as their stories are concerned. I want to share with you how to use our particular website and how to use the resources that we have in this library, because it's not restricted just to those that live in Indian River County. We do have
Michelle, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you see that little box on the bottom? It says there's a little word called hide, H-I-D-E. Can you click on the little word hide on your screen?
Yes,
Perfect.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But our library is accessible to other people throughout the whole U.S. and even some people that are in other countries. I had someone from Sweden email me several years ago. It was very exciting to talk to that person. So as you can see from the beginning of the page here, this is our huge library. We are a 2-story library. We were built in 1991. This is the 3rd library for Indian River County, which was formed in 1925. And you can't see from this video, this picture, but the back side of the 2nd floor, a quarter of that is the genealogy department. We're 4,000 square feet. And so let me see if I can move to the next slide here. There we go. As our history is, in 1986, they decided that, hey, we need another library. So there was a gentleman by the name of Julian W. Lowenstein and his family decided that they were going to donate funding to help build the new library. Like I said, in 1991, the library actually was completed, and the genealogy department wasn't as large as it is today. It grew massively, and they had to do an extension to it, and it went from 10,000 items to 30,000. We've got everything here from books to periodicals. I've got digital media. I've got our 1919 to 1979 huge volumed books that were the newspaper. We've got microfilm, microfiche. I think I said maps already. We have local history, so inside my department, I have another room, and that's temperature controlled and light controlled. That's a glass room inside of my glass room, and of course, to use some of the materials in that room, you have to wear gloves. We don't allow people to just walk in there. We pull the items out for them. Depending on the level of preservation, we can sometimes allow people to touch things without wearing gloves. Like I said, it depends on how fragile the item is. So I'm a picture person. This slide is going to have multiple pictures in it because I wanted to give you an idea so you felt like you were actually here, wanting to know, what it looked like. So as you can tell, we've got a lot of books. This is an old picture. During the summer, our card cataloger caught up our backlog of 900 books. So we actually have another shelving unit, and we have another shelving unit that should be in this picture that is not yet because it's not completed. And we also have another shelving unit on the wall. So we've got roughly an extra 3 shelving units that we put in over the summer. And if you look at that, you can see Dewey Decimal System. Most of the books that we have are cataloged by the Dewey Decimal System. Now we do have like our atlases and our maps. We don't use a Dewey Decimal for them. We try to keep them in one location in one area. Our card catalog will indicate where that item is located, so when a patron comes in, they're able to find that item. And to the picture on the left that says Ruston Military Collection, as you can read, his wife Jeanette donated his collection. Mr. Ruston was a lover of military books, a veteran of the military, and when he passed away, he decided, his wife decided, well, what am I going to do with all of these books? The shelving unit that you see on the left that says Ruston Military Collection, it's not just front and back. It's that big black one behind it as well. And that's front and back. Now, of course, we've added to the collection, so it's not just his books that he donated anymore, or that she donated anymore, but it's also books that we have purchased. And being a big Civil War buff, that collection has also grown in Civil War documents and books, so forth. If we move on to the next picture, we have our map collection. Now, we have more maps than this. At my last count, we had 954 maps of Florida and Indian River County alone. That number could be higher. I didn't count all of the maps that we had. I was trying to do something for our cataloging. But with that being said, our maps are a great resource for us because we're able to determine timelines. We have everything from plat maps to aerial maps. Some of them are in wonderful condition. Some of them are on onion paper. Some of them are Mylar maps. So depending on the year and who produced the map, depends on what type of material that it is made in. The cabinet to the right, the black cabinet, is one of our special collections cabinets. The gentleman who donated that collection, his father was a local builder and architect, and he wanted to keep his father's legacy going. Unfortunately, those maps are in a very peculiar situation because it's something that we want to have digitized and find homes for them and maybe possibly have the current homeowners have those maps. So those maps might be rehoused in the future, but at the current time, we do have them here. This is our microfiche computers. We have 2 of them, and we use a program called ScanPro. It's a wonderful opportunity to use microfilm. One of the things that I remember growing up, going to the local library, and I was looking for a newspaper article on a mansion that's local, that's an antique mansion, and I was looking for a story on it. And so I learned how to use the microfilm machines that were humongous, heavy, you couldn't move them. So things have changed a little bit. I know that the state archives, still sometimes use the older models, but these are what we have here. And as people are familiar, microfiche are just books that are put onto little tiny microfiche and or collections and so forth that you can read. Microfilm are actual reels that are anything from court documents to military records. Microfiche hopefully will have an index in the front or the back telling what's on it. Microfilm is not indexed, unfortunately, on the roll itself, so you do have to go and look for that item. Or hopefully somebody has indexed the roll for you and you can just go to the date that you're looking for. In the situation, what we have is we have an obituary index. So if somebody emails me or calls me and says, hi, my grandfather, John Smith, passed away in your county in 1949, and it says here he died on August 5th because that's what I got off of Ancestry. I can go into my obituary database and I can type in his name and see if indeed I have an article on him. If I do have his obituary in the newspaper, I can then go to the microfilm, or I can go to my digitized version because I do have some of these digitized, and I can find the obituary and I can email it back to the patron, which is very helpful. A lot of times that's all somebody needs is an obituary because it gives so much information. Of course, obituaries now are not a guarantee in the newspaper, but it's always fun and it's always great to look for them. The cabinets that you see on the right, that's just a small section of cabinets that I have. So if you're looking at the pictures, the two machines, the two computers are facing the cabinets that you're looking at. Behind those cabinets, you see that glass and looks like a poster board. That's the archive room, the room that I said that was air conditioned, temperature controlled, and light controlled. So here's some information about things that we have, whether it's periodicals, which we have a lot of periodicals. We subscribe to a lot of different genealogy societies. We try to keep the periodicals up to date as far as things that, if they're sending us periodicals that don't really have anything to do with history, maybe they're just a society meeting, we really don't keep those. We keep the ones that actually have where they've done history on their counties, or they write up an article every month on a pioneer in their county. We do have some that we keep just because of the location that the periodical is from, but a lot of times we like to have ones that have information, history in them in order for us to read. So we always tell patrons if they come in looking for a specific area, and with all of our books say we still don't have anything but a periodical on that county that they're looking for, we say go ahead and look at it because you never know what you're going to find. And that's so true with genealogy. We also have immigration records. We have ship records. My favorite is when I first started here, going through the books and finding my family in the immigration records from Switzerland. They went through France and came to New York. They were in the German index. So it was wonderful finding 3 different countries basically in order to find out how they traveled. We also have a special collections, and special collections contain priceless original documents and their sources, and they're not duplicated anywhere. So this is something that possibly either we did research on, or we had families that said, here's information on my family. I don't know what I want to do with it. I don't want it to get lost. Nobody in my family wants it. And so we take it. There are also some of the collections that are public that other people have, like the Barber Hale collection or the Corbin collection, the Joseph Brown Turner collection. So those things are something that we would not just be the only place that have it. So I'm going to take you to our website in a few minutes, but at the time I want to continue with this presentation, and then I'll go and explore that with you. The internet subscriptions, we're very fortunate to have a nice budget, and my budget is also encouraged by our friends of the library who contribute a huge amount of money for it, as well as our local genealogical society. So with that being said, I'm able to have a lot of these paid subscriptions that most libraries are not able to afford. Ancestry Library Edition, most people are familiar with Ancestry. American Ancestors is the New England database. Find My Past helps with your doing European records, especially British. Gale is a company that offers a multitude of services and research references. They're not specifically just genealogy. Our reference department utilizes them a lot for people who are doing research on stock markets and law, things of that nature. So they have other resources as well. Heritage Quest, which is also owned by ProQuest, is basically the sibling to Ancestry. We have History Geo, which is great for family history. You can go there and look up land records. Newsbank is the one our local newspaper contracts with them, and that's how we are able to get images and get our local newspaper in order for it to be archived. Fold 3 is the military database for Ancestry, and newspapers.com is owned by a third party for Ancestry, and they have historical newspapers, and they have an obituary index. The obituary index is priceless. The library does not have an account, a budget to have the obituary newspaper index. Unfortunately, we try to keep our costs at a minimal if possible, but the newspaper index, the obituary index, is something that I myself am going to get for home, just so I can actually have it. A couple of my volunteers have already gotten it, and they've looked things up for me, and it's an amazing resource to have. Again, obituaries, you can't go wrong with them, even if they don't really say much except for the person's birth year and where they came from. So this is the Archive Center, and you can see at the top I have little ice caps. We call it the Arctic. I'm always telling people, watch out for the polar bears, because this is a very cold room. It's kept roughly between 67 and 69 degrees. As you can tell, the picture on the right, those are those big books that I was talking about that are our newspapers from 1919. Very proud of those papers. I call them my baby. I don't like people touching them because they are fragile. As you can see, some of them have tears in them. So I was able to acquire funding from a local trust, and they paid to have those digitized for me. So I have those on the computer on a special drive. I don't have to have people really manhandle them. However, sometimes because I had the microfilm, which is also the same years, digitized instead of the physical paper, it's hard to read. So sometimes we have to go into the actual book itself to look at it, but for the most part, we don't. We do have, if there are some dates that are missing from the microfilm that, or if we're not digitized, we do physically do them ourselves. We have a huge machine that I believe I have a picture of. I'll show you in a few minutes. The picture on the left is in the same room. It's quite large. These are collection boxes. And of course, we know that collection boxes hold a wealth of information. This is all Florida history. These particular are Indian River County, which is our county. These are things that were donated by families that we've put in, protective sleeves, that we have itemized, that we have indexed, or they're things that we did our research on and the information was so large we had to go and put them in collection boxes. We have vertical files, which are basically local family histories, buildings, and things of that nature. And they're on the right-hand side in that pink cabinet. It actually goes all the way to the glass. So we have them by surname, and then we also have them by topic. There's a book that was written back several years ago in 1968, and it's called Florida's Hibiscus City of Vero Beach. This book is a great read. It has a lot of information pertaining to the county, how it was formed, and the different places that were formed within the county. It also has information as to prominent individuals that were important back in the county formation. So these are some of the newspapers that I have digitized that are on that special database that I was talking about. Star of Florida, Weekly Floridian, Star Advocate. These are Florida-based newspapers, obviously, and it tells the different time frames. I also have, so not all of these are digitized. I want to point that out, but majority of them are. As you can see, I've identified it on the right-hand side. You can see that we go back quite a ways as far as the dates. Of course, the state of Florida was not actually a state until 1845. So some of these go back, like the Star of Florida, go back before that. This is a book magnifier. Now, a lot of places have them. They're in the back corner. This was out, very usable. Because of my rearranging that I'm doing, I actually have it in the archive room right now so it doesn't get damaged. This was donated by a couple who had bought it for the father, and he passed away, and they didn't want to get rid of it because it was very costly. This document can magnify up to 400, and so the sheet of paper that you see on the bottom is actually what's being magnified through the screen. Now, the one thing that this is good for, and I'm sure there are multiple things that it's good for, but the one thing that we have found that it's good for is we have people that come in and they may have a German record or a European record that you cannot read. And it's very difficult to make out the letters. When you put it on this machine and blow it up, finally we have some type of answer as to what that letter could possibly be, and it helps give the person who's researching a little edge to know, okay, that's a J, not an S or a K. So it's very helpful. This is the book eye, the scanner that I was talking about that we use. This book eye, again, came to us. We were able to, I believe this was prior to me taking over, but I believe there were 3 people, 3 organizations that came together in order to buy this item. Very, very expensive, but it is amazing. I was in a genealogy conference in Florida with some other local genealogists, and we were talking about the use of this, and we kind of refer to it as a girl. She's fickle. She doesn't like to be used every day. You have to turn her on in a certain way. You can't just turn the button on. You got to have the tower has to be off first, and then the scanner has to be turned on, and so there's quite a process. But when she's set to the right standard, she works really well. And the way you would copy or scan on this particular item is you would place your book face up, and where it says Book Eye 4 towards the top there above the screen, it would scan. So it's kind of like an X-ray machine. It scans from above to below. It's really nice. You get really great quality and clarity. You're able to scan in black and white, color, and grayscale. You're able to print. We only print in black and white, but you're able to save it to a thumb drive. You're able to email it to yourself. No, we don't need virus protection right now. You're able to email it to yourself. You're able to, and I think what other options? There's so many functions. You can save it as a PDF. You can save it as a JPEG, a PNG, a lot of different functions. I have this machine when we're not closed for the pandemic. A lot of people come in and do reservations for it. They want to make scrapbooks. They want to digitize their photos. It has a resolution where you can scan up to 600 dpi. So it's quite good. But again, it's very useful, and people love doing it. People love utilizing it. So this is another glimpse of, you can see the archive room behind that I was talking about, the big glass room. But I actually have one less computer than what's in this photo. But this picture was to demonstrate this display case was one of my volunteers. She passed away, and we had a little fundraiser for her. We were able to collect some money, and her family donated money. We were able to buy this bookshelf, and in the middle you can see there's a picture of someone, and that is her. Volunteers are very, very much appreciated in this department. I am the only paid staff member. I have on average 25 volunteers, and I have the best volunteers. I'm sure everybody probably says that. But they index, they help patrons, they love genealogy, or they are very, very good on doing computer programs. I have one volunteer who actually digitized over 100 DVDs for me, so we would have them in a digital format. So we have volunteers who do a lot of different things, and we're always so grateful and so appreciative of them. And that's our volunteer power. And like I said, I usually have about 25. The lowest I think I've ever been is around 22. On our webpage, which I will show you some of this information, there is a beginner's kit, and that is to help people when they're starting their genealogy. We are separate entities, but we work very closely with the Indian River Genealogical Society, and because of that, we have a very good relationship. So they teach a beginner's class, and I updated the beginner's kit, so they utilize that kit during their class that they're teaching. We also have several genealogy interest groups through that society. I co-chair one of them, and those are interest groups for people who are trying to get involved and find out more information, or have I want to say a support group. It's not technically a support group, but if you have, if you are German interest and you have a document, or you need to know where else you should research, those are great places to go, those interest groups. I've got our society information here on this. on this page as well. And of course, when we are open, our items are printed at 15 cents per page. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up my library webpage because I think that that would be the best thing to do. And I hope that you are seeing this. So here is the beginning page. I'm going to take you back to genealogy. So right now we've got all of our things because, of course, we're open, but we're only open at a certain degree, so we have a lot of extra stuff. There's some more slideshows on our webpage with the things that we have, our information. But if you were to go to bookmarks, this is the page that I was showing you where all the different web sources are. There's one called Popular Websites. And some of these need an account, some of them don't. But these are other great resources. I've got additional resources out here. And this is where people kind of don't go the extra step and see all the resources we have. So I'm pointing them out because these might be something very, very helpful or interesting for you. And at any time, if you do click on one of these and you're not able to reach that website, email me because maybe the link that I have is broken and I need to have it corrected. So as you can see, I've got cemeteries. These are not just for Indian River County, but these can be all over the place. Find a Grave. I'm sure everybody is familiar with Find a Grave and how wonderful they are. Foreign countries, British history online, multitude of information. Military, newspapers and periodicals, ship passenger lists, specific cultures, websites of interest. And we continue to add to these. Gen Disasters is a phenomenal website. I stumbled upon it by accident and found out that two of my relatives, I couldn't figure out why they passed away in the same year, that they actually were struck by lightning under a pole barn. And I found it because I was at this website. Now, the one thing that you should do as a genealogist is make sure you document and print out what you find. I have since tried to go back and find that article, and I cannot find it. So hopefully I do have it printed at home and I'm not just going by memory because you can't document anything by memory. You have to have something factual in order to prove it. So again, these are a wonderful wealth of resources here. I'm going to slowly go through. I always like to point out Dead Fred Photo Database. I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but this is a great resource to have. And what you can do is if you want to type in a key term, a keyword search, let's just put in parks. Shows you all of these items, all and contain the term you searched for. When I click on this picture, it gives me information. The photographer was Parks artist. A lot of times you might find pictures of your relatives by going to this website. Back one more time. Surname search. Let's go and check that one. There's a wealth of information here. You can do it one of two ways. You can type it in or you can actually go to it using, scroll down and look for it. So I don't see Parks, so let's just put in Park. Again, these are just different people. This is Arthur Park, not my relative that I'm aware of, but isn't this amazing to have a picture of him? Now, I hope that you guys have been able to write this website down, that our website for our library, but I will leave it up on the screen for just a few more minutes if you want to come up here and write this up so you can go back and view these additional websites later. I want to just kind of briefly go through these here. This is the obituary index that I was talking about. And if I was to type in my family last name, my grandfather died here. He died here in 2002. Now, if I click on that, it's not going to take me anywhere because it's going to give me a 404 code. We have not got the technology at this point or the staff to maintain this by having an actual web obituary attached to it. But if somebody were to call me from, say, Kentucky, hi, my relative passed away, this is the information that they would provide me, and I could then go and get a copy of it and email it back to them. We have the beginner's kit that I was talking about that our local society uses when they're teaching genealogy. The 13-page document, you're more than welcome to scroll through that and look at that information. City directories, these are the things that we have that are on microfilm, microfiche, and some of them are books. As you can see, we've got different books as well mixed into this group. These are helpful because if you are doing research, this is on Mobile. This is not even Florida. So if you're doing research and you're from another area, then you might want to look and see what resources we have, because we just might have something that you're looking for. I don't know how many, I'm not up to date on the statistics of Nevada to know if you guys are natives or not. Sorry, the word slipped my mind. If you're natives, so I'm not familiar with that enough to know. But I do know that we have a wealth of information on several places that, you may have a relative that's in Wyoming and we may have a document in one of these things that's in Wyoming. You could email us research request, and it usually takes about 2 weeks for us to complete that. Now that I'm by myself, it's still taking me quite a bit of time to get to it because I'm the only one doing them. We have our Family Search microfilm because we do have microfilm that we have purchased from Family Search. And our Rusted Military Collection, we spoke about that already. Ancestry Library Edition. These are the things, again, you can do from home at this time with a library card for Indian River County. So you'd have to call our library in order to get a library card. And because you're out of state, there's 2 options that they would charge. They would charge an out-of-county fee, or they would do a computer card. I always tell my patrons to only get the computer card because the computer card's $5 for a year with unlimited access. Ancestry Library Edition is currently only available because we're not fully opened again. There's been speculation as to when they're going to revoke that privilege where you only can have access inside the library. But at this point, I've been given September 30th. I was on a lecture the other day, and they were talking about their vendor told them it was going to be December. So I'm hoping that my patrons are going to have access to it until December, but until I'm told by my vendor, I'm not going to be 100% sure. The Family Search, I know that Suzanne touched upon that briefly. They are continuing to digitize multiple records. They're continuing to use records that are overseas. They're working on German records. They're digitizing books. They're digitizing microfilm, microfiche. They're digitizing a wealth of information. And you never know what you're going to find. The other day, I actually found my great-great-grandmother's baptism christening record from Switzerland. And it was dated 1838. And it was because Family Search has started digitizing those records. So please make sure and check on things that you may have put it to the side because you've hit a brick wall with them. Go back and check those again on some of those websites because you might find the things that you're looking for. And always contact your libraries that are in the areas where your family is from. Again, a lot of my patrons that I do or help with research requests via the phone or email, they don't live here. The patrons that do come into my library usually come from other counties. I do have a good clientele of obviously Indian River County patrons, but I have patrons who come from the other 2 counties that are alongside of me. We have a lot of resources here, and thankfully, my predecessor, she collected a lot of books, and I have continued to grow the collection and tried to let her legacy live on, as she did such a phenomenal job with it. I am open for questions, and Suzanne, if you want to find out if there's any questions, that would be great.
Excellent. Okay. We do have one question so far, and I would encourage the class to go ahead and put into the chat box any other questions you might have. But the question is do they have to call to get a library card?
They would have to call the information desk to get a library card. And what I would suggest is that they call me first so that I could filter that phone call. Because at this time right now, we were having people come in to get library cards. So we will have to try to figure out how we can get a library card established for someone that's not local, that may
Okay.
require documentation being mailed in, just to verify who you are, but we could definitely find a way to figure that out.
Would you, I don't know, if you, I think you could, do you see the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen, Michelle? And if you do, if you could type in your email and phone number, so my students know how to get a hold of you.
And our phone system just changed, and starting tomorrow, we have new phone numbers. So I'm going to put in the number that they just gave me. That's the phone number. And if you're doing email request, I spell it correctly, genealogy@irclibrary.org. And that's the email address that you can reach me at.
Now, I saw that we had a few people that logged in after you started your presentation, so I just wanted to let everyone know who came in after the presentation started. You can, if you go into the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen, at the very bottom of the chat box, there should be 3 little dots. If you click on those 3 little dots, it'll download the entire chat box. So all the links and discussion that was going on in the chat room, you can download that. Because there are a lot of important links that I put into the chat box during the presentation, as well as, of course, you want to keep Michelle's phone number and email address. So I just wanted to remind the students about that. So once again, I encourage the class to go ahead and put into the chat box any questions they have. And in the meantime, I have a few. I got to tell you, I've never seen your, obviously being on the West Coast, I've never seen your library, but what a real gem this is. I mean, gosh, next time I go to Florida, and I do go to Florida, every few years, because I have friends and relatives down there, but boy, I am definitely going to stop by. Your library is, as a librarian, as you can tell, I'm very impressed. So I can't wait to go there in person and visit myself. And I hope the class as well, if you find yourself in Florida for whatever reason, I hope you'll stop by and visit their library as well. Now, of course, as a librarian, I have a few questions. And now I realize that you're just in the process of starting to reopen your library. But tell us, under normal circumstances, what kind of traffic do you get on a day? I mean, is it 50 patrons, 20 patrons, 100 patrons? What is your average walk-in rate during non-COVID-19 times?
Okay, so during our winter months, because of course we're Florida, so we have a lot of winter guests that come. So from the months of September until March, May, from September to May, we can average anywhere from, I'm going to say roughly 10 patrons a day. We don't have a lot of foot traffic that you would think, because a lot of our patrons, when they come, they stay all day. So we would not have the physical capacity for people to stay all day. If that were the case, if we were having that many additional people come. And during the summer months, we're slow. We have on average maybe 3 to 5 patrons that come in each day. Again, they stay all day. So it's not that we have, that we have a slow time, but we do have slow times when that situation happens. The other thing that we find is, when we have the society meetings and our gigs, our genealogy interest groups, I'll have 15 to 20 people from that group gathering and just kind of chatting before they go into their actual meeting. So that brings in a lot of people as well. I've done lectures in here with the Irish Genealogy Interest Group, giving them resources and so forth. We have the traffic, but we don't have the traffic, I guess, if that makes sense. We're slow enough that we can try to help everybody, where we're not trying to push people through and just, here's your information and go on. We want people and encourage them to come and look at the books and do their research. I have the other counties that I was talking about, usually once to twice, every couple months, we'll have groups of people come. So Brevard, which is the next county north of us, they may have a group of people that come and then they stay all day. We have a county to the west of us, they do the same thing, the county to the south of us. So we have a lot of people that come together during normal business hours. And we're only open Monday through Friday from 10 to 5. So there's no weekend or nighttime hours. the availability of staff is just not there. My volunteer that I showed the big bookcase for, she was our Saturday worker. And of course, when she passed away, because she got sick and then she passed away, they did not resume trying to have anybody work on a Saturday then.
Understandable. Well, I would assume you get a lot of traffic through email and snail mail as well.
Absolutely, yes. The research requests and the phone calls. I want to say our phone rings a lot because we do have a wide variety of people that we help. So even though we don't have the physical traffic, sometimes we do have like you said, the emails, the virtual phone calls, not virtual phone calls, but the virtual correspondence, whether it's email or phone call. We do have that opportunity to help additional people. Since we've been closed for COVID, I've been incredibly busy, constantly with research requests and so forth. And it's a good feeling that, I can manage my time so that I can still help everybody individually like we used to. It's hard to do, but it's something that is manageable at this time still.
Okay, thank you. Is there a charge for the card for distance students like my students?
There is a charge for the card. The library card, if you were physically here and say you were visiting from out of county, I would say to get a computer card means you can access the computer resources at home, and it's a $5 card for 1 year. However, with it being over the phone, I'm going to have to find out what exactly they will permit. I would believe that they could still do a computer card. I don't know what criteria that they would require or about mailing the card to you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know some of our guest speakers who are librarians at other libraries that we've had over the past 3 years as our guest speakers. Sometimes they make special arrangements for the students, for educational purposes.
Right.
So,
right. We have that with our local college. One of our library branches is at the local college, so we have an agreement with them. But I would have to find out. I'm sure I could figure something out, though.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, that obituary search database that you showed the students, is that only for Florida?
Yes, the obituary index is only for this county. So that is something my volunteers started working on. There's roughly 122,000 entries, and it does go back into the early I want to say the furthest I've gone back in it is 1940 something. But it is something that they have worked, I think, 11 years on. It's been in practice. It's continuing to be updated. The obituaries for August were just uploaded into the database, into a spreadsheet for our IT guy to upload it into the database tomorrow. So it's something that's continuing to be maintained.
Okay. Now, if any of my students reach out to you by email with a research request, is there a charge for a research request?
No, there's no charge for research request. And if you do a email, then I can respond back, and there'd be no charge for paper as well. The only thing that I ask is if you're doing a research request, limit it to a total of 5 items, not my whole genealogy.
That's understandable. You know what? I wanted to remind my students, you talked about your KIC scanning machines.
Yes.
Our library has 2 brand new KIC scanning machines that are state of the art. We just got them, I don't know, maybe less than a year ago. And they are in the library. And right now, of course, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, our library is still shut down. However, if there is something that you'd like scanned, if it's not too big of a job where I can't manage it on my own, I do go to the library from time to time. I'm not on campus on a regular basis any longer because of the virus, but I am more than happy to scan something for somebody. So if there's an immediate need that you have, please let me know, and I'll see if we can get it accommodated for you. Let's see here. Hold on. Oh, you mentioned earlier the Barber Hale Corbin collection. Now, I know we have some brand new people who are just joining us that are beginning genealogists today. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
The collection itself is something that I have not done research in now. So I hate to say that without it sounding redundant as far as what things are. But the Barber Hale collection that we have is something that my predecessor was very, very much involved in. And it's something that I don't want to sound like I have egg on my face, but I really haven't researched it. I know that it has to do with Connecticut.
Yeah, the Barber collection, most LDS libraries have paper copies, and there are actually CD-ROMs that, if your computer still has a CD-ROM, there are actually CD-ROMs out there that you can purchase with the collection on them as well. The Barber collection is excellent, like you said, if you're trying to research your Connecticut ancestors. It breaks it down by, I believe it's by county and town. So if you've got a Connecticut ancestor, that's definitely something that you might want to go to your local LDS library if they're open. Of course, with the COVID-19 virus, so many of them are closed right now. But that's something definitely to keep in mind.
And
Also, you talked a little bit about your wonderful map collection, and we just last week we had a speaker who did a wonderful presentation. Her name is Jeanette Schliga, and she did a wonderful presentation for us on Sanborn maps. So I'm kind of right now kind of keen on maps because I'm still kind of like really feeling wonderful about the lecture she did last week. Can you kind of give us a little bit more detail about the types of maps that are in your map collection and how you can incorporate those into researching your family tree?
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to comment on the Barber collection because I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm asked a question I don't know anything about. When I applied for DAR, which was several years ago, this totally slipped my mind. We had to go to the Barber collection to pull out one of the documents for me to apply to become a DAR member because my relative was from Connecticut. So the Barber collection did help with that vital statistic record. But again, I didn't focus in that. It was a very short time that I dealt with that. So I apologize for not having more information. But thank you for clarifying what it was, Suzanne. The map collection that we have, we do have the Sanborn fire maps. We have them for our local area, and we also have the ones for Florida. We had used the Sanborn fire maps when we were doing the centennial to certify residents because some of the maps actually had their houses listed on there from the early 1940s. But the maps that we currently have, I've got maps from 1924 and 1911 before this county was actually formed when it was another county. And we're getting them cataloged so that they are searchable in our card catalog so that when people come in and they're looking for something 1911, I'm looking for the 1911 Fellsmere Farms plat map. They can put it in the card catalog. It tells us where the map is. We can pull it out. Sometimes those maps will give information on them, not only about the townships or the ranges or the sections, but it also will give us information as to what exactly was on that property at the time, depending on the year. So it's been helpful for people who are trying to kind of place their relative as far as where they lived in the county. The other thing that people utilize those maps for are people who are trying to get new highways or red lights put in or things of that nature. They come in and they're looking for maps to show what the zonings were at that time. If there was a canal, why was there a canal there? Maybe it benefited because there was a swamp next to it. There's a various number of reasons why people have come in to use those, but we're trying to get all of those cataloged so that people can look them up on the computer and have a better idea of what we actually have.
Wonderful. Now, I would assume, do you allow the patrons to actually handle the maps, or is that only handled by staff? Or if the customers are allowed to handle the maps, are they required to wear gloves?
A majority of the maps I've got encapsulated into protective sleeves, even if they're oversized, so the patrons are allowed to handle them without gloves.
Wonderful, wonderful. I used to be a cataloger for 13 years. I did cataloging for a living in a college library, so actually, some of the best things I ever cataloged were maps because they seem to be a lot more challenging to catalog than a book.
Our cataloger is loving it. She came in one day and she's like, look, there's pine trees in this area right here. I said, oh, wow. She said, there's a fallout shelter. So, of course, we went on a field trip trying to find the fallout shelter.
Amazing things that the one librarian to another, I can appreciate the joy of cataloging.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give the class one last opportunity. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type it in to the chat box. And I wanted to let Michelle know that thank you very much for giving us permission to record the session today. It will be on our school YouTube channel probably sometime the next week or two. It has to go to our marketing department from here. And it gets edited for certain things to be taken out, you know, like personal identifying information and stuff like that. So anyhow, I got some thank yous, but it looks like no one's got any further questions. So Michelle, I'm going to say thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, and I hope each one of my students reaches out to you for not only a library card, but also for research assistance. And for anybody in the class today, if you do not have Florida ancestors, as she pointed out, there were certainly other states' information available through her genealogy library. So I hope that you will keep her library in mind when you're doing research on other states as well, and bookmark her library on your internet bookmarks. And of course, share the information about her library with your friends who might have ancestors from Florida. So with that, Michelle, I'll go ahead and if you'd like, before I want to let the class know before you hang up, Michelle, for the next hour and a half of class, especially for the benefit of the new people today, we spend the last hour and a half of class doing research assistance for anybody who needs it. So if you are in need of genealogy research assistance, either one-on-one with me or in a small group with the students who stay after class, stay after the presentation, I encourage you to do that. It does not matter whether you're here locally or from another part of the country. I know today we had several people from other parts of the country logging in. So if you'd like to just to stick around and get to know the genealogy lab and what we do after the presentation's over, you're more than welcome to stay online. If you choose not to stay online, all you simply have to do to disconnect from the session today is click on the red hang up button in the upper portion of your screen. There's a little bubble with a red telephone, and just click on that and that will disconnect you. So with that, Michelle, if you'd like to disconnect, once again, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.
Take care to everybody and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.